Time to get a little experiential in our journey. Our next speaker is simply outstanding. Most of us might have heard of Polkadex. Now, Polkadex is on its way to becoming a game changer in the world of launchpads, with PolkaIDOs automated to being fully on-chain, transparent, inexpensive, fair, and without the gas wars. Now, these are challenges for those who are in the game. They would know how hard it is. So that's something that Polkadex is solving for the rest of the world. So let's give it up for the executive director and co-founder of Polkadex himself, Vivek Prasannan. Welcome, Vivek. We are truly honored to have you with us this evening, and we're all ears. Over to you.
Hey, thank you, Ananya, and thanks, Sriharsha and Amit, everyone in the Polkadot in the team. It's a pleasure to be here and meeting everyone. Well, I think it was a nice intro given by the previous speaker about Substrate, and maybe I can just give us brief background about myself. I'm a computer engineer, and I got my degree back in 2001. And I have been into IT consulting for close to 15 years before I started building and started focusing on building products. And more of that had to do with my the finding of Bitcoin accidentally back in 2013 when one of my friends during our discussion introduced me to one of these forums, and I learned about Bitcoin, and due to sheer curiosity that generally drives someone who is in a entrepreneurial path, I had to figure out what it was, and I started researching and reading a lot about it, and tried my experimenting with mining and all of that. So that's how the whole journey began with crypto and understanding how blockchain works and how distributed consensus algorithms can have long-term effects on the way a financial industry and the society at par would be affected, right? So I was keenly following many of the thought leaders during those days, and the primary one obviously is very famous. I think anybody who's new to blockchain should begin with Bitcoin, and then maybe you should go through Andreas Antonopoulos. Is one of the best books out there about mastering Bitcoins and the Internet of Money, where he proposed the idea of Bitcoin being the Internet of Money, and how it can actually create a more level playing field for creating a distributed way of storing and transferring value. So that's about the same time, I was also trying to trade or to acquire some Bitcoin and then to find out how it works. I was I tried to use some of those exchanges available at that time, and that's probably when the entire industry came to know about the inherent security issues with centralized exchanges. And in that respect, I was very keen to solve that problem, right, of this third-party custodial nature of centralized crypto exchanges that you see. Even in India, the popular exchanges are centralized, and many people do not know the inherent risks of storing crypto being a decentralized asset. The person who controls the private key has all the access to it, or the entire custody of that, or the ownership of that. And besides this, people still acquire crypto and leave them on the exchanges, knowing that there is no regulatory framework, even in India, to protect them from losing these assets. So that's been the main, the inspiration to go behind this problem. And initially, I started to solve it with BitShares, because BitShares was built around the idea of a decentralized exchange. I hope I'm audible, right?
You are.
Okay,
You are.
Great, thanks. Okay, so BitShares was one of those exchanges started way back in 2015, founded by Dan Larimer, and I think he just left the project after a couple of years. But the seed idea was really inspiring for creating a trustless peer-to-peer trading system, where if you want to sell your bitcoins to another person, you don't really depend on this intermediary layer, right? So that's where the idea of decentralized trading began, and I started using BitShares. And the problem with those kind of exchanges where the speed of transaction, and that was a time when people were behind the transactions per second um, gaming mindset, where everybody was behind solving TPS. And finally, Vitalik, in one of the papers, he clearly described that it's a triangle where you generally have to sacrifice security for achieving higher transaction throughput. And it's basically a balancing act where the more complex your blockchain is, um, inherently it could be slower or it could be less secure as well. That's why you have the obvious issues of hack in Ethereum smart contracts more than what you see in Bitcoin. And so basically, the my attempt did not take off. It had so many issues with developments and the whole infrastructure that I had in my mind. It just didn't work because you had to rely on centralized exchanges for creating assets with collateralized equivalent. I don't know how far technical this is, but you need to collateralize the equivalent amount of the layer one blockchain token to issue an asset, an equivalent asset, uh, to trade in those blockchains. So that's when in 2019 I met my co-founders, and Gautam and Dipanj. They were working on a very interesting consensus algorithm. They're both from NIT Calicut, and it was using Lamport vector clocks instead of block time. Block time, they were using vector clocks. So it was really interesting for me, and right from then I knew that Gautam was a brilliant developer, and I really liked his passion in bringing something new to the industry. And we kept in touch for a long time because initially I wasn't really keen on the technology alone because I was more into use cases. And at some point, I think everybody came together. It is right about the time when the COVID situation worsened in India, and we decided to come together and uh, use those know-how in building those consensus algorithms into a decentralized exchange, use case. And that's when, after a lot of research, Gautam came up with this idea of Polkadot and Substrate. Then I started researching about it, and I was really excited because coming from something I worked in BitShares and with Graphene, the kind of uh, you know modularity you had with um, architecting the whole blockchain by having absolute control over your block time, the idea of extrinsic, and the idea of the off-chain workers, and the runtime WASM environment. All of that was really groundbreaking. And following the, after research, you keep stumbling upon people in Web3 and Joanne Bennett's speech, and then Dr. Gavin Wood, and then you just get captivated and carried away by the whole vision, because it's beautiful that there are people who believe the same ideology and the philosophy at which uh, Bitcoin and the original decentralized uh, you know uh, consensus, or the decentralized idea of having a trustless way of uh, communicating and freeing people from this bonded system of having to rely upon um, centralized parties that actually get absolute control over your data and the way they track your behavior. And the idea was to give back control to the people. And the vision is really good. If you haven't um, looked at one of those lectures, you should definitely go and view it, because it's very interesting. And so it was very natural to get sucked into that philosophy, and then you just keep reading and reading and reading. And then we just decided, yes, this is what we're going to build on, because it gives us all the control to actually play with the block time and all of that, minute control on building the blockchain. So the idea that we are discussing today is just a byproduct of whatever we were researching on, because the original idea was to create an order book which would behave exactly like a centralized exchange, but will give back custody of these assets to people who trade, and nobody will have to sacrifice the custody to a central custodian to allow these trades to go through. So that was the original idea of building Polkadex. And fortunately, I think we applied for a Web3 grant, and to everybody's information, even Gautam didn't have, because Gautam came from a Golang Python background. He did not even know about Rust. Even I didn't have any idea. So we started learning Rust back in, I think um, June, July 2020. And we just picked up speed, and Gautam, he was able to come up with a prototype by September. And we submitted that to Web3 Foundation. And bingo, we just got selected for the Open Grants program, because nobody was really keen to solve the order book problem. Because if you look back the history of how the decentralized exchanges have evolved over the years in crypto, you you could see exchanges like Ether Delta and many others who tried and did not really gain traction for scaling the idea of order book based peer-to-peer decentralized trading. And so people were moving and shifting towards the bonding curve based AMM model, because Uniswap was a great success, and that was the way to be. And so people were more focused on bringing bonding curve based algorithm and bonding curve based decentralized exchanges to Polkadot. So we proposed a different idea, where we said we wanted to review the order book, and we want to bring that experience to Polkadot by making certain balances and sacrifices, but at the same time creating a decentralized peer-to-peer uncustodial exchange. And so Substrate, obviously, I think I don't have to go into technical details. I already mentioned the great control that you have in building a blockchain, unlike you build on a virtual machine based, as you see in Ethereum. It's much more easier. You have a template that you can actually start off and fine tune based on your requirements. And if you look at the core features that we're building, especially with the backup and the way the blockchain rolls back the state of the blockchain, using off-chain workers as a external monitoring system with IPFS, I think it's really, really cool. It was possible only because of its substrate. None of the others, it was definitely, it's going to be possible. So it's really great that we could do that. And the IDO, coming back to that, so we had our own IDO with Polka Starter, one of the really good platforms out there for our distribution of tokens, because we had to start distributing tokens to make the system decentralized to a point before we launched the mainnet. And we faced a lot of difficulty on Ethereum. And if you ask me, we spent close to $50,000 just to have the smart contracts listed and executed on Ethereum for the distributing our tokens. And many of the people couldn't participate because of the rising gas fees. All of a sudden there was a huge interest, and the gas fees went up, and there were people who paid $1,000+ and simply couldn't get an allocation. And we are still fighting the scars of that event. And what we did was basically going back and doing our homework of how to avoid the situation from happening in the future. And that's when we thought see, it doesn't really take great time to create an IDO like that, because we are anyway neck deep with Substrate, and creating a logic palette for doing this shouldn't take us long. So we thought, because our primary R&D was on order book and the Polka pool, which was much more difficult to build, this one was much more easier. So we just allocated a couple of engineers for that. And we also thought that if you look at the entire stack, IDO is a great way to launch new tokens that comes out of in Polkadot ecosystem. Plus, they can have a natural progression onto an order book, which we are anyway building, right? So we thought it's good to go behind that problem and create a platform that will allow projects to list without a lot of hassles that we have kind of getting centralized, in my opinion, because many of these platforms are driven by centralized decision making and profiteering, right? So at some point, it becomes very prohibitive it becomes like a club. You need to have so many tokens and so much of money to actually even participate. It's like a mini VC culture. So we wanted to change that and just give something to think about, like a protocol release to the community. It's like a protocol release. We have absolutely no control. It's completely going to be governed by the um, governance tokens, and the community will manage that. So the good thing is you can basically control the amount of tokens you need to have for participating, and also for the amount of tokens that each project have to stake to get listed. And governance can even curate these projects from. That's another thing, an advantage that comes with Substrate when you compare that with Uniswap. In Uniswap, anybody can list any tokens, but here you have another palette which actually gives you control over, if somebody applies for listing, governance can take over and say, hey, we don't allow you to list because you are a scam. It's something can be done. That way, there's some level of filter is also there. Plus, there is nothing like the kind of gas war you see in Ethereum, because it's much more application specific. There are not a lot of other transactions happening on that chain, right? It's dedicated for that. It happens on the basic native Polkadex chain, which is relatively free compared, because it's a very application specific blockchain. It can handle all those transactions very easily. So it can grow in the long run. So yeah, so that's why we came up with that. It was basically an idea that came because we just who will be governing? People who stake tokens in the governance palette. Yeah, so somebody asked. Okay, so that's about that. And obviously we have our mainnet launch happening end of this month. On 26th is the technical launch. The official launch will be on 29th. We wanted to give a couple of days to stabilize before we announce. And we have the IDO will be the first thing to go live as a product. And then Polka Pool is another idea. I don't know whether I should venture out into all that. Amit, up to you. I mean, otherwise I can just maybe take any questions and go from there.
You could totally do that. In fact, it would be pretty interesting to learn.
Do we have any questions for Vivek?
If not, I can elaborate more on the.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, so what even I was saying, Vivek, would be actually pretty interesting. So you could continue, and maybe in about 5 minutes' time, we'll start taking questions.
Sure. I can maybe. Yeah. So governance is basically. Is there any part of the governance? Yeah, I am seeing that. Yeah.
Great.
Hey, Naveen. Is there any part of the governance decided by the team and not by the token holder? No. Team will have one vote, as in any other, governance. So basically it will be like, I think there will be 13 votes. That's what I remember. Probably Gautam can give more detailed spec on that. So it will be nominated, and you have to stake your stake tokens, and people who stake maximum number of tokens can actually be part of the governance ballot, and you can have a voting right, and that's how it goes. It's just like how normal governance, take place in a proof of stake chain. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I was asking that specifically for a regulatory thing. It would be challenging if you guys are controlling.
Oh yeah, of course, yes. That's why we wanted to leave it alone. We wanted to just give it as a protocol release. We don't want to take any responsibility for, who's doing what. It's like something like Uniswap. Of course, but
Awesome. Thank
you may have repercussions, but yeah, let's deal with it when it comes up. I can say a bit about how Polka Pool is different, because we have three products actually, not just PolkaIDO. We have PolkaIDO and we have the Polka Pool, which is the bonding curve version, as you see in Uniswap. But none of the problems that you see in Uniswap today. I mean, in the sense that the primary issue of Uniswap is that many of the tokens that gets listed in Uniswap gets front run by the bots. And if you have a smart market maker playing behind the scene, the new investors can just suck out of liquidity, and they will get, they'll be really ripped off. I mean, they can lose a lot of money. If you look at the graph of a newly launched, any new launched token in Uniswap, it is like a big U, right? Because all of these front-running tokens will, keep pushing the money and keep pushing the price up, and you keep paying more, and you effectively lose a lot of money. So Polka Pool is aimed to avoid that by again using Substrate. Substrate is one of the palettes, because it allows you to have on-chain randomness in the for the transactions in runtime, where you cannot deterministically say which transaction will get executed, even if you pay more fees. Basically, there is no fees in Polka Pool. Basically, you have an equivalent, the price being paid by the amount of tokens you stake. So the amount of token you have to stake to get a free transaction will be determined by the network, determined by the way exactly how Ethereum handles, in terms of you have more number of transactions to compete with, you may have to stake more number of token, but you only do staking. So staking comes as a, somebody has to pay, right? So staking is the price they pay to actually let these transactions go as gas free. And once the transaction gets executed, you can actually take your money back, and you basically effectively have a feeless system. And since the transactions are shuffled using on-chain randomness, there is no way someone can front run by paying high gas fees. So it eliminates two of these problems. And Polka Pool is also it's also a protocol release where the Polkadex, the exchange team has absolutely no access to it.
Vivek, a quick question.
Sure.
Given, okay, so if I look at Ethereum, Uniswap would be the primary platform on Ethereum. They're sitting at about a 13 billion market cap. And if the way I see it, Polkadex is potentially the primary platform coming up for DOT, would you agree? As of now, you would have competitors like PolkaSwap, for example. And you're currently sitting at about $55 million market cap. So what is the one thing, if you were to point out, what is the one thing that you're lacking in comparison from Uniswap to probably hit that market cap, for example?
There's nothing lacking except the time, right? You need to have, first thing is that you need to have sufficiently decentralized network to actually launch these products, which will happen in the next few months, right? And comparing market caps against Uniswap, an established protocol, would be, I think it's too early to compare us against any of these, big market cap, protocols. So what we need to focus on solving the problem and allow the market to take care of itself. If people want to use it, they will use it. If people want to shun it, they will shun it. They'll tell you the truth. What you're building is, a meme coin or something useful. And we focus on building something useful. And I really hope that it's useful for the community because it's something really needed because I've traded myself and I would really want to trade on a platform like that. And that's what we are building for. So
that's exactly what I was looking for, because like you said, Uniswap has held the test of time. But again, from a solution perspective, if you're already addressing most of everything that Uniswap is doing, it's just a matter of time. As the user base builds up, you'd be pretty much headed in that direction as well. That's what I was looking for too. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hello. Am I
Hi,
audible?
this is Raj. Vivek, fantastic, thanks. And I think appreciate, and it's quite exciting that you're trying to level the playing field for retail as well as sort of institutional investors. So I think that's really great. My question is around, are you planning to launch only on Polkadot, or are you doing anything with Kusama at all?
No, we're going straight for the Polkadot auctions. Because for a product like ours, which is very, very, what do you say, with a very direct interface with regulatory systems, like because we are going for institutional institutional engagement in the Polkadex order book. So we don't want to have because Polkadot is more going to be the stable relay chain in the system. So we do not want to have run on Kusama. We'll go directly for Polkadot auctions.
And you plan to enter the first set of auctions for Polkadot?
If not, the second one, because
Okay,
first
thank
would
you.
definitely be we have at least 5 projects which have been waiting for 2 years, 3 years. Yeah, it's fine. We can go for the second option, no problem.
Great.
But
Good luck.
yeah, thank you so much. Sorry.
Hello, Vivek. I have a quick question. Am I audible?
Hey,
Hello.
sir.
Yes,
Yeah. Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
yeah.
Tell me.
The one thing about DEXs that really fascinates me is the opportunity with bots and flash loan arbitrage. So like, what kind of opportunity like can we expect with your DEX?
Well, Sahil, we are focused on building the infrastructure. So building the tools is just 5% of the job, I would say. Okay, so if we can get a tech stack ready, up and running, creating all of these things is not going to take a long time. And we are anyway creating a demo for the trading bots to start testing on our testnet with the order book. Sometime in October, we should be coming up with the release. So we already have great interest from leading trading bot systems. Like we're already in talks with Hummingbot. We'll anyway integrate Hummingbot because it's open source. We can do it ourselves. They just have to accept into their governance. So we'll just get into the system. And we are also talking to 3Commas. It's a very good bunch of people because we are also registered as a company in Estonia, and the 3Commas is out of Estonia. So I think they are going to be also one of our good partners if it comes along, and they'll be part of the testnet.
Awesome, awesome. Do you have like any plans to like collab with all these lending protocols like Aave in the future? Like that, gives like a whole new, exposure to, lending and then swapping of tokens,
Yeah, I think we have our own method to actually attract liquidity to the system. Basically, we would like to reward people who provide liquidity to the order book, and it's designed using a combination of natural inflation and the treasury system, and it's part of the yield curve that we have, but it's separate from the other people. And because every blockchain is trying to attract users to by giving them more interest yields. So we can definitely partner, but there has to be synergy on what is actually we are sharing each other. If there is anything of a synergy, definitely we should do that. We will do that. But definitely for order book, if you the idea is in order book we have market makers, and it would be like if you lock your funds, you can choose a market maker or trader and just put your signature on and leave it there, and they would market make for you, and you will get a cut from their profit. So that's something new that's going to happen in the Polkadex order book, which kind of really transparent and cool, because there's actually something really value generating there, rather than you just paying people out of your inflation and your blockchain has no other use case other than just inflating and just giving out tokens. Out of what? You really have to create value, right? Somebody has to pay for it. And if you simply create a blockchain and say that it's inherently deflationary and just keep rewarding these people with a supply system that is kind of closed, it's not sustainable, right? You have to create value out of these blockchains, right? So in our system, the good thing is that we have different applications that drives value, that creates value, which attracts people to come and make profit, which creates velocity of the token. And so naturally, when you get rewarded in such a system, it is more sustainable, and there is no other, magic there.
Vivek, from our front, very curious to know that how did you go about building this community or creating that interest, or what did you say to keep them coming back for you? Like, how did you go about building that network to keep supporting you?
Yeah, I think we have one of the best, I wouldn't say best, but very good marketing team. We have a very good marketing team. And on top of the fact that we've been very sincere in our language, in what we are trying to do, there is no hype at all. Everybody knows what we are building, nothing more, nothing less. And we are delivering our timelines, and we are sticking to our roadmap, even though there has been certain delay with the change in architecture and everything. Everybody knows that that change was actually towards the vision or where we want to get, why we made that change. So every time it has been very transparent in communicating with the community on what we are doing. Whenever we make a change or delay, there is a specific reason for that. It's not because that some of our engineers left, or it's like some problem on our side. No, it's purely had to do with the technology sometimes that we depend on. When you build an open source, you depend on third-party technologies. Like, for example, we initially depended on Snowfork for their relayers for bringing tokens from Ethereum trustlessly, right? Mm-hmm. So when there was a delay on their side, we had to shut that, wait till they release an audited code before we can start using it. So apart from these kind of things which are inherent in the ecosystem by sharing technology, apart from that, I don't think we have done anything that is so people can see what we're doing, right? And right from the start, if you're following us from September, we've had many releases. It's not like we didn't do anything. In December, we had the first release of the testnet, and we also showcased how an on-chain order book would behave in Substrate for the first time. If it was on-chain, that was a speed. Everybody could see that day, and I even did a demo, and it's in YouTube. So we could see that it's not going to work. It's just going to be another Ether Delta, So we just changed our architecture, and we told why we changed it. We came up with new protocols, and we told why we are doing it. We have extensive literature on that. If you go to Medium, we told exactly why we're doing. So openly and transparently communicating, I think people just understand, because we just didn't pretend. We just told people what we are doing. That's it. So I think that's been the biggest. I don't see any other reason why we have a good community now. Yeah.
Fabulous. So I personally am quite at a loss of words to close that, but I'm sure all of you dreaming to build your own little empire got a little bit of fresh food for thought. Thanks so much, Vivek. That was truly a fresh perspective. It was a great journey to relive on, and a very simple one. Like you said, you kept it grounded, you kept it real, you communicated what was going on. It's as simple as that.